All right. Hello, everybody. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, but we are back with another in-depth competitive guide. So we're going to be doing another 10 Tems, just like the first one. After I started making the builds, I realized that these next 10 Tems, a lot of them are ones that I'd imagine are actually on the list to get buffs. So some of these Tems may have changes in the near future. However, I want to say that even though they may receive changes, I think that these builds are going to be kind of like generally good starts still, even with changes that may happen. So it's not that they're going to be irrelevant, but definitely take everything I say with a grain of salt. Maybe double check if there's like a move missing or a move added on any of these Tems. Just know that I am making this video in patch 1.5.2, and I'm going to do my best to kind of like predict what could possibly happen with these Tems in the future, as well as just give like a good example of where they are currently. Because Krama doesn't seem to like to change identities too much, so the current builds that I'm going to offer should be just relatively viable. All the builds I offer are just starting points. You can copy my build exactly as I offer it, and it can probably get you started for a while, like a good feel for the Tem, but maybe you'll be like, oh, I want this to be a little bit faster, or I want this to be a little bit bulkier. And I would encourage that. I always encourage experimentation. And I just want to offer a good starting point and kind of like explain deeper as to how these Temps play and what you want to do with them, sort of stuff. So we'll get into it now. The first Tem of the day is Mudrid. So you may notice there's only one Mudrid build. Mudrid honestly is pretty basic. It doesn't have a whole lot of options. Every single Mudrid you're going to see is running Crystal Dust, Soil Steam, and Crystal Deluge. And then I left the fourth slot open because the fourth slot, it does have a little bit of flex, okay? So one of the options, it's usually between two options. It's either Quartz Dirt, so if you want a spread option, it's okay. It's not great, but it can also trap if you have other Earth synergies. But Mudrid itself is an Earth type, and Mudrid is not a type you'd want to have Mimit with for like double Quartz Dirt, double Earth synergy. But I mean, it's basically if you just want a spread option, you can run Quartz Dirt. Otherwise, Dust Vortex, which does just a little bit more damage than Soil Steam at a slightly higher stamina cost. So you can run it. If this is Dust Vortex is my preferred slot, but it's open for trying some stuff out. I did actually experiment with Diamond Fort a little bit because the interesting thing with Diamond Fort, it may be low prio. However, in very niche situations, like if you're being threatened by a stone ball from a Turok, you could click it. Did I ever click it once in like the 50 games I tried it? No, no, I didn't. But the option's there. The other options are physical. It's kind of weird that Mudrid has so many physical options. Can't recommend any of them. You could technically run refresh because you could deluge the threatening slot and then refresh, but that's a bit tough to pull off. I can't super recommend it. I think just having Dust Vortex as a slightly higher damage nuke is the simplest way to play it and the best option. So getting into the build now, Mudrid has really low stamina, really low defense. It's Mudrid is one of the glass cannons in the game. There's not a whole lot left. Krema's really been balancing out stats a lot. I mean, Mudrid did get like +2 defense, +2 special defense a patch or two ago. That does like nothing for it. Mudrid can live most turn ones, stuff like a water cannon from Ukama, a plague from any plague user. It can even live a hook from a max attack Sensei Osakai. That's one that I always kind of find interesting. I mean, Mudrid has a nice base HP stat, which kind of helps it live that, but don't expect it to live stuff like an aquatic whirlwind, a resin trap, or definitely not an uppercut. Or even a stone ball, it struggles to live those. So you'd have to invest a lot if you wanted to. So I cannot recommend it. So the speed break point you definitely want to hit is 305. This makes it so that you're faster than max speed Saipat, which also puts you above Hedgen. The Saipat one's really important because Saipat is a water melee type, two types that can hit Mudrid super effective. So being able to outspeed that, potentially put it to sleep with a deluge is important. Your earth moves are not going to outspeed Hedgen, but if you just need a little bit of chip to finish it off with Crystal Dust or to put it asleep with Crystal Deluge, both of those are options. So the stamina breakpoint, if you do run Dust Vortex, you may want to add more stamina. It's currently calced for Soil Steam, Crystal Deluge, Soil Steam, which you could also do Soil Steam, Dust Vortex, Soil Steam. Or something like Crystal Dust, Crystal Deluge, Dust Vortex, but you can't do all three expensive moves. I didn't want to invest already more than the absurd 116 stamina. Because we don't even get to have max special attack with this. But I've tried this build a lot. It's pretty nice. As far as the trait, I opt for Resistant. It's a good trait because Tolkien's still relatively popular. Being able to be immune to Heater and the Fiery Soul Burn, super nice. You're also immune to Mom's Lunch Exhaust, to Plague Exhaust. Plague's a move that's likely for Mudrid to get hit by. And then Mudrid's also a really great counter to Toxic types. So if you're pivoting Mudrid into like a Toxic Ink, being able to take less damage from that can also help. So I would say in general, Resistance is the best trait. However, Receptive is also just fine if you want to save some of these stamina TVs and then run Fake Beard as your item. Fake Beard is commonly taken up on teams, so I wanted to offer this second option primarily, but you can definitely do Receptive Fake Beard, 100%. And then Iron Coating is just the typical item of choice, just because it helps increase your nuke damage of Soil Steam and Dust Vortex. There's not a whole lot of items you'd run on Mudrid outside of a stamina item if you're running Receptive. So I would say it's basically going to be Iron Coating or Receptive Fake Beard. As far as good partners, you basically have like any mental, just for Deluge synergy. Mudrid, the main reason you're going to run Mudrid is for the fast Deluge. Crystal Deluge is a very strong option. I put Adoro here just as the choice because Mudrid's two of its other weaknesses are Nature and Water, and Adoro covers those with Toxic. So technically they pair pretty well, but it's weird speed tiering, so just be aware of that. You may want another mental, another faster paced one. Maybe something like Auhi. I use Auhi fairly often with my Deluge partners. And then Volgon is also just another option with superconductivity for synergy with Crystal Deluge, and also gives synergy for Crystal Dust, which can be nice. And you can even like Strangle Sleep combo with Deluge and Volgon. Just an option. As far as counters to Mudrid, Saipat, like I said, its typing is super threatening. If Saipat has Nicho up, you cannot bring Mudrid onto the board, and Saipats can even potentially run Martial Strike, which is also super problematic. So Saipat's something to watch out for when playing Mudrid. And then Oshiara as well. Oshiara's got respectable special defense. You're not going to be able to two-shot Oshiara, especially since it resists your Earth Stabs, and Crystal Deluge is on a hold. And then Oshiara can hit you back, and it's actually faster than Mudrid as well. I could have put Gyalis on here, because a max speed Gyalis can outspeed Mudrid, and a max bulk Gyalis can survive a Dust Vortex Iron Coating Dust Vortex, so it can be a bit rough. A little out of practice is taking longer than I thought, but we'll get on to Tyfu now. I might try and go through this one a little bit faster, so sorry for everyone who loves the more in-depth, but we'll see. So Tyfu is probably towards the top of the list of Tems to get buffed. It's been out of the meta for a while. There was a point where Tyfu got both of its traits reworked, and as well as its signature move Leech. And it really hasn't seen a lot of use since then. It used to be a stall Tem because Leech would do 20, I forget, I think it was 25% to your opponent, and it would heal Tyfu for 25% of its max health. It was true damage, so it was really nice. You get buffs on stall, and it just doesn't, buffs on Tyfu, and it just doesn't lose in a stall team. But now, Leech is a Leech is a lifesteal move, which is cool in its own right. It heals itself for 40% and 50% with synergy. It also, with synergy, gains prio and increased damage, as well as lower stamina cost. So it's actually a really nice synergy. Problem is, like, Typhu's a slow tem. The priority doesn't matter too much, and Tyfu already has one of the highest base staminas in the game, so stamina cost also doesn't matter too much. And so it's kind of questionable on, is it really worth stacking a toxic weakness to get synergy? And I'd have to say it's a little tough. Anyways, on to kind of like Typhu builds. So this is the first build. It's my personal favorite of the two. It's utilizing Safe Retreat, which is more or less like Regenerator from Pokemon, except it's only once per battle. You switch out Typhu, and it gains 2 turns of regenerating. I think regarding Typhu's traits, I think it may be just like Typhu buffs in general. Safe Retreat should give 3 turns of regen, and Natural Conversion should not deal 10% less damage on nature type attacks. So wouldn't be surprised if we see those change in the near future. But either of those changes will not change the builds whatsoever, so don't be afraid of that. Item, I picked Double Screen. You can also run First Aid Kit, which I have on the other one. Both of them are kind of just to help Typhu survive. It's slow, it's got to take hits, and you want to take as many as possible. Both of these items help you to do that. As far as a moveset here, Leech, you're going to run Leech on every single Typhu build you run. Your Leech is the only reason you really run Typhu. I have Hypoxia here as a turn 1 option, just because Typhu doesn't have a turn 1 nature option that's viable. But Hypoxia gives it coverage and helps it be able to hit Toxics, which is one of its counter types, which is super nice. So if you get a couple buffs on it, you can actually take a hit from a Toxic and smack back. Not that it hits real hard, don't expect it to. It's not stab. But the option is there. You never know when you got to finish off something at low health, and having a turn 1 is super good. Bark Shield is just so that Typhu can sort of supplement its bulk itself, and also act as a support depending on the situation, just in case your Typhu's low health and you can't really have Typhu be the carry of the game. If you can still get a Bark Shield off, it can be super valuable. And then Gaia is to allow a buffed Typhu to completely run away with the game with a never-ending stamina rotation, because it refills your stamina to full, as well as it's a self-healing move outside of Leech. The build, so the stamina is to reach 101, which is just slightly rounded up from a 4-turn rotation of Leech, Hypoxia, Bark Shield, Gaia, just all 4 of its moves, which is kind of what you want in a Typhu that's going to sit on the field a while. As far as its bulk investment, I didn't calc this specifically, but Typhu has really lopsided defenses between its defense and special defense, so you definitely want some amount in its defense, and still a lot in HP if possible. Typhu has naturally high special attack, so you don't need it at max. You could even have less than this, max out the HP and maybe have more in defense, but I wouldn't go below 200 special attack. Your leeches are going to feel really bad if you do. And remember, since it's lifesteal, you're healing a % of the damage you deal, so the more special attack you have, the more you'll heal from leech. Safe retreats just so Tyfu can either be a pivot, get its holds off. You really want to swap Tyfu into a positive board, get a leech off to heal off any damage it takes on the turn, and then Bark Shield the next turn and swap out. That's probably the best way to do it. That way you have Bark Shield as well as 20% extra health when Tyfu comes in next. As far as its other set, it's kind of utilizing natural conversion, making Tyfu more of a special bruiser type. First aid kit it's not immediate reduced damage, but it also just still gives it more survivability. This time we have Allergic Spread and Dust Vortex as the last 2 options for attacking moves. With natural conversion, Dust Vortex and Hypoxia do hurt pretty bad. Leech and Allergic Spread a little bit less so, but it still gets stab. It's just more or less counteracted by the natural conversion negative damage. It's a relatively similar build, except we're maxing special attack this time. A little bit less in stamina since these moves are cheaper and you only need a 3-turn rotation, but still keeping a defense and HP kind of split in bulk because if you didn't have the defense invest, Typhoon's going to die to any physical moves. As far as some partners, it's actually kind of funny. So Windquaish, once Iridescence gets fixed, I actually think that Windquaish will be a really good partner for Typhu because it gets Refreshing Breeze, which is a really awesome support move, which gives +3 special defense to Typhu. It can also offer Hypnosis sleep support for Zen meds to raise Typhu's special attack, which raising special attack isn't. There's not a whole lot of options to do it. So Quaish having both Refreshing Breeze and Zen med is the main reason. And even more so is Quaish can counter both of Typhu's weaknesses, fire and toxic, with water and wind. So I think it's kind of a good combo. I did get to use it once in a team before it got bugged, so I think it'll be worth looking into again in the future. Oshiara, kind of a similar reason. It gets Hurry Wart also with Refreshing Breeze, and then it can counter fire types. Although you are stacking the toxic weakness, as I mentioned, which can be a bit rough. As far as counters to Typhu, I have Lawali listed on here, specifically because even though Typhu has triple coverage with Wind, Nature, and Earth, you still can't hit Lawali because Lawali resists all of those. And yet Lawali can hit you with Wind moves back for neutral damage. So just something to watch out for there. The same thing with Saku, which is the same type. Tolkien counters primarily this Typhu that doesn't have Dust Vortex because of the same reasons. Alright. On to the next Tem. We have Wiplump. So it's actually been a while since I've used Wiplump. It's actually been a while since I've used most of these Tems, but a lot of their builds haven't changed throughout time. So I kind of have two builds here. We have a faster build utilizing Plethoric, and then a bulkier build utilizing Patient. As for the faster build, we just have Hand Fan just to increase the wind damage on Tornado and Hyperkinetic. If you can swap a Plethoric Wiplump into a board without it taking damage or getting knocked out of Plethoric, Hyperkinetic will do quite a bit of damage. I don't know the exact calcs compared to Tornado. I think you want to click Tornado when you can, but Hyperkinetic allows you to always have a secondary high prio. Good option to hit toxic types with. Tsunami is, well, I should say Water Can is a mainstay. It's just Wiplump's high damage turn 1 water type move, as well as it's synergized with toxic types. Tsunami is something that's it's a spread move in general, but something I've seen done with it with some of the freeze believers out there, like Brutal Felix and Welsh Leprechaun, is they try and get a board with double Wiplump, a Wiplump and a Mimit, and if you click Tsunami on both, you'll get the spread damage on both Tems and a double freeze, which is kind of a fun combo, although it's a bit hard to pull off. So in general, you just kind of use the move to get spread damage. If you are running like Wiplump with a Mimit for free shenanigans, you will want to drop Hyperkinetic Strike and run Ice Shuriken. Because Ice Shuriken applies 2 turns of cold, rather than Tsunami only applying 1. As far as the build, the HP is enough to help you survive a Wastewater from a max attack Hazrat. You'll also survive the Toxic Tick with this amount. So it's just a decent HP breakpoint to live or to have, but you're not going to live everything, so don't expect to live like an Electro Punch. Stamina is just a little bit to get a 3-turn rotation. The speed is so that with the Plethoric boost, you can outspeed max speed Oshiara, Ukama, and Gyalis. Not super particular, but you want to be relatively fast, and it also allows you to save some TVs instead of just going like full max speed. And so you can have as much special attack as possible to really threaten out Tems. As far as the bulkier build, this is one I have not run. I really haven't run bulky Wiplump, but I've run into it quite often. I don't, so I could be kind of wrong about this build, so I apologize if I am. But I think the general idea is that you want a really bulky Wiplump with some amount of speed. I just hit 232 on the breakpoint here. That's pretty similar to what most of the things you're going to be hitting with Wiplump are. You'll be able to hit Tolkien's with Water Cannon at a very similar speed tier. You'll also be able to outspeed stuff like Hazrat with Tornado. So I think it's an okay speed breakpoint to hit. I've actually seen some zero speed Wiplumps too, just so that they can have more HP and special attack. But that's kind of something to play around with. You don't actually need stamina on this build because you get some from Patient and then also Bait as an item. Outside of the stamina gains from Bait, one of the main reasons you run the item is to push off toxic ticks so that you can survive potentially two wastewaters from a Mushuk, because most people don't invest max attack on their Mushuks. They actually usually only invest 1 to 200 attack. So you can live two wastewaters from a weaker Mushuk build with the Bait item, which allows you to get hold off, get a water move off, and then get a tornado off, so you can target one slot and then the Mushuk or whatever you need to do. And then after the speed and HP breakpoints, I just filled the special attack. So this isn't a specific breakpoint, it's just whatever was left over. Sharp Rain as the third option here, just to let you know that it's an option. You can run stuff like, you could run, where is it? Tsunami again. That would be just fine. I wouldn't recommend running Ice Shuriken because you're so slow, you're not going to get a lot of freezes off. You could run Gust if you wanted. I don't like Gust as a move anymore. You could even run Blizzard if you have something like a Nagise on your team, or you just always want to be stamina positive. You could. I wouldn't recommend running Tenderness. I think most of the time you'd want to utilize Wiplump's high special attack stat to just get some damage on one of the slots. As far as good partners for Wiplump, you have there's honestly quite a few. I didn't put Mimit on here, but Mimit would be one of them. I put Acronox because Wiplump's the move it really clicks all the time is going to be Water Cannon. So having Toxics to pair with Wiplump is super good. Pairing an Acronox with Plethoric Wiplump allows you to Water Cannon into a Venom spread relatively easily. Because if you don't invest any speed in Acronox, like even this Wiplump build would outspeed with Water Cannon. But you can even invest more speed and kind of play around with, see how much speed you can get on your Wiplump and have your Acronox be like one speed under that to maximize how fast you can get the Water Cannon Venom Spread combo off. Just something you can play with. It's one of the better combos out there. Most people run it with Ukama just because Ukama is a bit more consistent and doesn't die in one hit to an electric. And then Hazrat, it's relatively similar because Hazrat gives Wiplump Water Cannon synergy, and Hazrat gets Lava Wave synergy. So both Tems kind of benefit from the combo. So I'd say something like these two would be really good partners for Wiplump. As far as Wiplump counters, it's more or less just stuff that resists its stabs. Like Wiplump cannot get hit by, or Wiplump cannot hit Nestla and Lawali at all, really. You can get Toxic Ticks on them, but Nestler commonly runs Camo, and Lawali even commonly runs Bait. And then this, of course, applies to the other combinations of types that Wiplump resists as well. So I mean, I didn't put them all on here, but like, I guess I'm kind of blanking, but just Nestle, Lawali, Saku, and such. Anything that can resist Wiplump stabs, it kind of struggles against. On to the next one, we have Skunch. Skunch was one of the top performers in Temtem Worlds this year, primarily due to some of the last-second buffs it got. Now, Skunch It performs really well in two situations. One, when there's no mentals, and two, when there's no mental. um, it definitely likes when there's no mentals on the board because it has a 4x weakness. Like if there's mentals, it's really tough to play Skunch. But Skunch's secondary use is usually as like a perfect jab bot. It's one of the best perfect jab users out there. But it's also like Skunch doesn't have a great turn one to use outside of perfect jab, but it does have wrenching massage. So these two builds, they're relatively similar. Both of them utilizing the trait Brawny. It's just so much value. You do 20% more damage always, compared to Bully, which is 25% more damage sometimes. It's just like if you're running Skunch, play Brawny 100% of the time. As far as the item goes, I would say the main item you want to run on Skunch is going to be War Drum. You can run Resistance Badge if Skunch is the only neutral on your team. But normally, if you're running Skunch, you usually run like one other neutral. But if you're not, you could run Resistance Badge. But War Drum's good because Skunch gets value out of it, as well as the ally that you're probably perfect jabbing for. I have a double screen first aid kit. Just those items that help you stay alive are also an option. I even considered like a tinfoil hat myself before to help a little bit into the Digi matchup, but I can't recommend that. But technically, it's an option. So I would say the double screen War Drum kind of your main options, primarily War Drum. As far as the moves go, Savage Suplex, Oshidashi, and Ninja are kind of like your mainstays on an offensive Skunch. And then for your turn one option, it's usually between Wrenching Massage or Perfect Jab. Wrenching Massage is good if you have more like two or more electrics and you want more upfront damage. Usually this would be on like a faster team. Usually if you're having a slower paced or mid-range team, you would want the Perfect Jab to just gain momentum in your favor. But I also have this build, which is kind of more of a support build. It doesn't change a whole lot. It's just it has perfect jab, and then instead of Oshi, you can run Haito Uchi. Haito Uchi is a very strong move. It does solid damage, especially when you multiply the damage by 20% with Brawny, and it sleeps your opponent. So that is an option instead of Oshi. It's also slightly less stamina costs. Something to consider for sure. Uh, Skunch can kind of go either way with attack and HP invest. It has really nice base bulk HP defenses, so you don't need to invest a whole lot. And yet, every time, like all the invest that you do put into it, does stack up. So here's just kind of with this Skunch build with these moves, you probably want 82 stamina, which would give you a 3-turn rotation because all of its moves are relatively expensive. And then max attack with an HP fill. As far as the speed goes, it's tough. I cannot give you a here's a Skunch speed break point. Now always use it. I can't do that. So Skunch, you're typically going to want it just faster than your fastest physical threat for perfect jab value. If you're not running perfect jab and you have a wrenching massage set, it really depends. You're not going to get value. You're not going to get on tempo value from wrenching massage almost ever because it's low prio, and you're not going to want to invest max speed Skunch. Uh, so yeah, I can't give a good speed break point. I have this one here because this will outspeed base speed Chim, which I think it's okay. It's a good middling speed break point. It allows you to keep most of your TVs invested in HP and attack, but also not be ridiculously slow. Your ninja would be able to outspeed stuff like a max speed Oshiara, Gialis, Ukama if they're not using Prio, which I think is still good. So you can definitely keep that as an idea. But it's the speed break point is likely something you would have to conform to your own team. And I'll be looking to do a video on creating speed breakpoints real soon after this, probably this week sometime. So look forward to that if you want more in depth. And if you're watching this long after the fact, it should just be a few videos later. Just scroll a little bit. This build is kind of just the opposite, where I max HP and then fill attack. Same speed breakpoint, because like I said, I don't know. On my on my team where I most recently ran Skunch, I not only is this designed to outspeed like opposing chims, but it was also to P-jab for my own Shimurian, which is the fastest Tem on my team. So and then I was able to save some stam here because if you don't have Wrenching Massage the turn one, having a perfect jab into a Savage into a Ninja is a little bit cheaper. So just something to keep in mind. As far as good partners for Skunch, I have Chim because I mean the reason I'm using Chim is because Chim is one of the higher turn one damage outputs with hostile Crystal Plume Gatling. So being able to P-jab into a target with that high damage gets a lot of value. Ragnit I have because Ragnit can P-jab for Skunch using Wrenching Massage, and also Ragnit and Skunch usually have the same game plan of being perfect jabbers for a physically offensive team. And also, if Ragnit runs Sparkling Bullet, it gets synergy with Skunch. So Ragnit and Skunch are, I think they're one of the better partners. I didn't put it on here as well, but Raiken is also a good partner because it can use Quetza, and even with Prio, if you invest enough speed in your Skunch, you can have it so that your Skunch will perfect jab, and then the synergy Quetza from the Raiken will go off. So just something else to keep in mind. I didn't put it on there though because it ends up being a lot of speed invest on Skunch. And unless you have that much faster of a team, you're probably not going to want to run it. But I figured it's worth mentioning. As far as counters to Skunch, just mentals in general. Mentals, mentals eat Skunch for breakfast. I mean, Skunch can live like an energy manip from most Tems, even a weaker transient Echo. I put Moala on here because Moala is the premier mental in this current patch. But if Moala gets nerfed or some other mentals get buffed, just be aware that Skunch doesn't want to be in front of mentals, as they can just resist everything he wants to do. However, like if a mental pivots into a perfect jab, you still get the double defense drop, which is still value. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Just make sure if you're playing with fire, if you're leaving Skunch in front of a mental, just know that. And then Skunch also has a weakness to digitals, outside of just the insane mental weakness. However, it's not like digital resists Skunch, so it's just kind of a trade-off there. I have Hedgen on here because Hedgen can outspeed even like a Skunch ninja, and it'll hurt it real bad with a digital move. Okay, that's enough of that. So we'll go to Inky now. Or, no, not Inky. Sorry. I was select on Inky. It's Mouflank. I promise it's Mouflank. Another like bulkier neutral that has been seeing a lot of play in this patch. So both of Mouflank's traits are viable, which is really cool. There's not a whole lot of Tems where both traits are at almost a 50% play rate each. I'm a personal fan of the Hurrywart one. Gear-wise, Mouflank can get away running Resistance Badge every single time. It's gonna only be clicking neutral moves, so it gets value off of every single one of its moves. You could also run marbles. I've seen that because you're gonna be running. Like Mouflank is one of the most flexible leads in the game right now. If your opponent's not running mentals, which they commonly aren't, you can just throw Mouflank out there, get marbles value instantly, and if your opponent swaps, then even more value. So it can go either way. I like Resistance Badge though. On a Hurry Warp build, you're probably going to be running these four moves. Base jumps, you have a turn one just in case somebody has like Tyrannac to cancel out your Hurry Wart, but also just to have a high damage option on the turn when Goring's on hold, and Bestial would be your only other option if you need some single target higher damage base jumps there. Goring's your prio option. That'll be up turn 1 due to Hurry Wart. Bestial's your spread damage option, also up turn 1 because of Hurry Wart. And Held Anger is your nuke that's up even faster because of Hurry Wart. It's just... Mouflank is like a math machine. It just constantly outputs damage. It's got really low stamina cost too. I was convinced a while ago to put 81 stamina on my Mouflanks because Mouflank has like a 5-turn rotation with 81 stamina. Like if your opponent does not deal with Mouflank, it will stay on the field and it will deal damage. It will just kill stuff. So if you're facing an opposing Mouflank, it'll probably be a huge pain. As far as the speed breakpoint, for Hurry Wart specifically, I'd recommend 232 speed. It's just the common outspeed, max speed amphitheater breakpoint, which is just a breakpoint a lot of Tems hit. And because you have access to priority turn 1, you can get more value from it. And then I just put max attack practically. And it's actually funny. With this speed breakpoint, with this stamina breakpoint, I was actually one health away if I went max attack from surviving the strongest beta burst in the game, which is Nagais. So I took the 1 point out of attack. So you with this spread, you can live any single beta burst in the game, and that's just kind of it's a good HP breakpoint to hit. It's not perfect. You could definitely invest some more HP, and you could go less speed as well if you're not worried about some of the faster Tems. But this is a build similar to what I would run, what I'd recommend running. As far as the unnoticed build, I actually dropped Bestial Charge for double kick because Goring is not up immediately. So if you want Mouflank to be a revenge killer, you have some immediate prio with double kick this way. Although it does cost more stamina than you'd probably like, so don't spam the move if you don't have to. But having on-demand prio is valuable. Same reasoning for base jump, Goring, and Held Anger, though. As far as the build goes, though, so unnoticed increases your speed if Mouflank's not attacked. So you're actually able to save a bunch of TVs in speed and put more in bulk. So this one I've got significant bulk, but split between HP and special defense, because Mouflank has relatively low special defense. That's actually really low special defense. So balancing out its defenses a little bit helps. There's not enough bulk invest in the Hurry Wart build to justify doing that. But you invest more bulk in an unnoticed build, so you can get you would want to split the defense a little bit, put some in special defense, and then it's just so it's kind of like fill attack. I actually just have 500 TVs in bulk about, and then I just filled the rest of the attack. So that's kind of how I got the numbers. I have a calculator that kind of tells me where are good breakpoints to split bulk for. That's how I ended up with it. So those are the two main Mouflank builds. I have heard arguments for stuff like a support Mouflank, stuff like Tenderness, and to just kind of nerf physical attackers, and Cage. Both of those can even be slotted on either of these two main move sets. It just kind of depends on what your team wants. I would say for the most part, you just want the 4 damage options. Cage is kind of a double-edged sword. You can catch your opponents off with it, but you're also trapping yourself, and if you don't utilize it correctly, it'll actually hurt you more than your opponent. And for anyone who's like, where's Special Mouflank? Special Mouflank's, it's not good. It's a fun meme. You can get like turn 1 knockback off, but just if you really want a knockback Mouflank build, just have like max HP, max special attack, and then knockback. That's all I can recommend. I can't recommend it. Execution's a cool move, but it's just got one too many holds to really be viable in my opinion. If it was 1 hold less, I think you could argue a slot for it. As far as good partners, I would say Capyre is a great partner for Mouflank, which is, I'm actually going to get to Capyre towards the end of the video. But Capyre's fast, Mouflank's fast. Both of them have prio options. You can kind of double into a slot that's a little bit squishier and finish it off. And that's the goal that the and combo that these two really have and want to achieve. Because Mouflank gives neutral synergy for Quetzal's synergy. Yeah. And then Hedgen. Hedgen with Mouflank is a combo. It's just like, we got two offensive fast threats here. We can double into one of the slots and try and kill it. But Mouflank's usually bulky enough to live 2 hits. And you're probably going to pick type advantage into Hedgen rather than raw damage. But Hedgen can click Synergy Generify and dodge a hit with Mouflank. So it's just, you force your opponent into a 50-50 of, is the Hedgen going to click Generify? And I can't double into it successfully? Or is the Mouflank going to... yeah, so it's just like, do you double into the Mouflank or double into the Hedgen, more or less? And then as far as counters to Mouflank, it's kind of the same thing as Skunch. Any mental, because Mouflank's only got neutral moves to work with, so mentals resist those and can hit Mouflank back for super effective damage. These special mentals are even more dangerous because of Mouflank's lower special defense. I just put Nagais as the mental on this one because Mouflank really likes its priority options, and Decidor and Nagais reverses those. So it's a bit more of a threat to Mouflank than some of the other Tems, some of the other mentals. But, I mean, all mentals are bad for Mouflank. And then the other counter I put is Inky. It's not because Inky's like, wow, Inky's such a big counter to Mouflank. No, it's just I put a strong special attacker because Specmaster Inky is probably the biggest turn 1 special nuker in the game. And so you can really pick on Mouflank's lower special defense with Inky. You can do like 70-80% with the T-Strike. And so in that way, a double into Mouflank when Inky's faster can probably just take it out, which is an issue. It's still going a bit slower than I was hoping, but we're on to Rolder now, which is a much simpler Tem, simpler build. So Rolder... There was a time where we had what most people refer to as the roller meta, because Rolder was the strongest Tem in the game. It had higher base. Like, Rolder is more or less min-maxed. It has like 0 special attack. All its bulk is nuts. Its attack is high, and its speed stam are a bit lower. But this is post-nerf Rolder. Rolder hasn't gotten a whole lot of love since it got nerfed, and it got nerfed in like 3 ways. Its stats got hit, Drill Impact and Goring both got hit as well. So Rolder's never truly recovered, and it's kind of been floating around lower tiers since then. Oh, and Reactive Vial got nerfed. Reactive Vial used to be like 15% heal and 3 turns of neutralized. But anyways, that's past Rolder. Current Rolder, you still want to run Reactive Vial. Reactive Vial, if you're running Rolder, you probably want Reactive Vial. Rolder has 4 weaknesses, and it has a lot of raw numbers. Like it's kind of like a numbers machine, like most neutrals. We just had 3 neutrals in a row, but Rolder can tank a lot of hits, and with Reactive Vial, it helps it to tank even super effective ones better. As far as the trait, you can run Thick Skin. It's just fine to run Thick Skin if you really are afraid of wind types. But I think what really makes Rolder unique is its signature trait, Tardy Rush, which after 3 turns on the field, it increases its speed by a ton and its attack. I forgot Tardy Rush was nerfed too. It used to be 100% speed. Man, Rolder really got screwed. Yeah, so the whole goal with Rolder is to stay alive for those 3 turns, get that boost, and then to constantly put pressure on your opponent because of that. So I guess I'll go through the moves first. Drill Impact, Goring, and Rockfall are kind of your mainstays on Rolder. I think on every single Rolder build you're going to want these. Drill Impact's just your turn 1 high damage option. Goring's your prio option. Rockfall is your best earth option. Some people may be like, where's Stone Ball? I do not like Stone Ball on Roller. It costs too much stamina for Roller's low base stam. It doesn't do great damage, and the low prio has anti synergy with Tardy Rush. However, I do there is kind of like a flex slot on Roller, so you can run Stone Ball in that flex slot, and that's a okay. I've done it before. I actually find that Earthbreaker is a better option because Roller is going to stay on the field for a few turns anyways. So being able to have a nuke after a couple turns is super valuable. And if somebody brings in something like a water type or a mental type to beat your Roller, you could get Earthbreaker synergy and smack it, and it can be really nice. I've also seen Helldanger, which is another kind of the same thing as Earthbreaker. Higher hold, but it comes off at the same time as like Tardy Rush, and then you just get a big nuke for cheap stam. You could also run Stonewall. I should have mentioned it as Skunch too. If you really wanted to run support moves on Skunch, you could have had Stonewall in one of the slots too. But it's the same thing with Roller. You could run Stonewall if you have a bulkier team that would utilize it. But typically, I think Roller you want to be outputting damage. Technically, you got Bestial Charge as an option too. I would go Earthbreaker, but that's my opinion. As far as a build goes, max HP. Roller wants to survive. It's got high enough in both defenses and high enough base HP that you don't need to split defenses. Just throw the whole thing in HP. Go ahead. Speed. This speed breakpoint is so that after Tardy Rush procs, I forgot what I calculated for. So it's okay. I, once Tardy Rush procs, it reaches 305 speed, which is one speed faster than Psypat, which will also outspeed Hedgen, which is kind of just like the speedier end of where you'd want to outspeed stuff at. So I would recommend hitting that. Literally, your goring after Tardy Rush would outspeed a Hedgen. That's nuts. Like, it's not even that crazy of investment. It's only 168, and you get to utilize that speed throughout, even before Tardy Rush procs. It's still a nice spot to hit. So I also it's worth mentioning that at this speed, you'll with just goring prio anyways, you'll reach 247, which will outspeed speed creepers at 232. So as far as attack goes, attack is just fill. It's you don't need as much attack in Roller. It gets its value from staying on the field and taking hits. And I mean, it still reaches a very respectable attack stat with this invest. Bigger problem is stamina. You can get away with lower stamina. However, you get like diminishing returns. No, that's not even the best way to put it. 61 will give you a 3-turn rotation if you click Drill Impact, Goring, and Rockfall, and that's great and all, but after that 3-turn rotation is when Tardy Rush procs, so you're going to want to be on the field for another 2 or 3 turns, and that's when you run out of stamina and you have to rest every other turn. It also doesn't allow Earthbreaker or Stone Ball into your rotation if that's what you're running. So optimally, you'd probably run more stamina. It really hurts to do so. So it's something you kind of have to play around with. Like I've seen people run Fake Beard on Roller instead of Reactivile for that reason. But you're gonna run into survivability issues then. You could take even more out of attack and put it into stamina, but then it's Roller gets ignored and it may be a wall and it may get Tardy Rush off, but if it can't offensively threaten anything, it still kind of sucks. And you're only adding one more move to the rotation, so Roller's still probably going to be resting every other attack anyways. Because after Tardy Rush procs, no matter how much stamina invest you have, like within a reasonable amount, you're still going to be attack, rest, attack, rest, attack, rest until it dies, or until it's more valuable for you to swap than to keep Tardy Rush around. That was a lot. Sorry. I'm playing out full games in my head as I explain this. If I had better editing skills, I'd show you guys in much more easy to consume ways. So I hope you guys are still good with this. As far as some good partners for Rolder, I mentioned Riken here. Riken's just a slower Tim that still gets neutral synergy. So you can kind of, if you're running a bulkier core and have Rolder around, Riken's usually a good add. Riken can hit natures and even it can at least hit neutrally melees and mentals to kind of pair with Rolder and create some good board states. Riken also threatens out lower health Tems because of Prideful. So if you're able to get Tems low enough, you can kind of threaten stuff there. And then Adoro is also another slower paced Tem that actually covers almost all of Roller's weaknesses because it covers its melee weakness, nature, and water weaknesses. So it's just kind of Tems with the same game plan and have some amount of like coverage for each other and synergies where possible. Although Adoro doesn't have synergy with Rolder at all. It's just kind of like typing and game plan wise. As far as Rolder counters, Barnshe is probably at the top just because it resists both of its stabs, and yet a drill impact from Rolder onto Barnshe probably does about 30%. Mentos are weak to neutral, right? That's a joke. They're not actually. It's just Barnshe has low defense, low HP, and so a Tem like Rolder, even on a resisted move, can still do a lot of damage with a drill impact. But like a Gamma Burst from Barnshe will darn near one-shot Rolder, so still definitely a counter. And then I list Golzy on here because Golzy has Diffuser, and on this specific Rolder build, you don't have a turn 1 Earth move. So if you lead Rolder into Golzy, Golzy can uppercut you, diffuse your reactive vial, and finish you off with an Oshidashi turn 2. So be very, very careful around Golzys if you're playing Rolder, purely because of Diffuser. Alright, now we're on to Nagase. I'm sure there's a lot of people that skip straight to this part because there's a lot of Nagase lovers out there, and this is also probably one of the most confusing Tems in the game. I've already done a video on Nagase, and it is horribly outdated because Nagase's primary trait, Decidora, got reworked. So what Decidora does now is it flips priority from very low to it explains it here, but the priority is inverted. So a low priority move would be high priority, and a high priority move would be low priority. And that's kind of the gist of it. So what this does is it prevents a lot of the faster Tems from spamming their priority options. Something like in last meta, we had Volphy everywhere using Plague and Sludge Gift. So Plague would be low prio and Sludge Gift would be low prio. But at the same time, Nagase has to be scared of something like an Electro Punch that doesn't have synergy, because then it would be high prio. So Decidor is kind of a really weird trait. It works against you as much as it works for you. People who have experimented with Nagase more than I have say that new Decidora is really bad and in need of help. So I wouldn't be completely surprised if we see Decidora get or Nagase in general get some sort of buff in the near future. But I'm hoping I can give some guidelines as to how you can build it if you're playing it now. So for the Decidora build, and I think, well, Marbles, it's not actually specific to the Decidora trait. I think it actually worked good on the Water Custodian Nagase as well. Nagase is just a Tem that forces a lot of swaps because it has just as many resists as it has weaknesses. It's really, really interactive. So you'd probably get a lot of value from Marbles. So it's definitely a gear I can recommend on it. It's also that Nagase doesn't utilize a whole lot of other gears. It doesn't get value from Baton Pass anymore. And a lot of the bulk giving items don't help it significantly. You could run Rock Shield, which would help you in the Chimerian matchup a little bit, but not a whole lot because Chimerian resists both your stabs. And Tukma Mask is okay to resist toxic attacks. Stuff like Mashuk is very common right now, so being able to take the wastewater better and resist the toxic tick and smack back with a mental move can be valuable if Marbles is already taken. As far as the moveset, I think if you're running a Steedore and a Geist, this will always be your move set. Beta Burst for solid stab, Nagaice for your water move and spread, Psy Surge for your priority, because normally it's low prio, but under Decidora it's flipped. And then Hypnosis, just so that you can put the electrics to sleep before you die to them, if at all possible. Or whatever other time, but 4x elect weakness, yikes. As far as the build goes, this HP breakpoint, it's same thing I calculated for Wiplump, where it's a max attack Hazrat using wastewater after the tick. So it'll help you live most. It also you'll live a Crystal Plume Gatling from a max attack 2 Vine. So I think it's a good breakpoint to hit. Just it's nothing crazy, not too much invest, but it'll give you enough general bulk to survive a one strong hit from something you don't want to. Stamina hurts. You can kind of get a 3-turn rotation with triple beta, or beta fury and then one of the cheaper moves. But it would be an extra 6 stamina needed if you wanted to do beta fury beta. So I'd recommend just hitting 71 and not going higher on the stamina invest. The speed is 273, which I think this is the same breakpoint I hit before. It's just enough to outspeed Nesla at max speed, as well as Chromion. So those are two things that can hit in a guy super effective. So being able to outspeed them is valuable, and there's not a whole lot that you'd be able to outspeed if you go faster. You could outspeed max speed Inky if you were to truly max out your speed on Nagaice, but that only matters if you have Nagaice Fury up, because otherwise Inky resists your mental moves. So it's kind of a hit or miss. I'd recommend just hitting 273, unless you have another specific reason not to. And for anyone curious, well, what would that reason be? Well, you could, instead of running Hypnosis, run Humiliating Slap and play Nagaice as a sort of support. I guess you could even remove like Psy Surge if you wanted. And so you would want to just be faster than your physical crystal type for that situation. But other than that, I think 273 is reasonable. You could speed creep it a little bit. Goes 274, 275, or whatever, because it's a common breakpoint. And then the special attack is just fill after the other 3 stats. It still helps you reach like 300 special attack, which is pretty nuts. So it's a good spot. The Water Custodian build is practically the same. Like, as far as the actual TVs themselves, I can't think of anything better. Because it's the same triple beta rotation, or beta fury, and then stam efficient move. So the only thing that's really different here is the traits. Like, even though Water Custodian is a support-like trait where it just takes water moves, you're still going to be running the Geist offensively. More like, it's more of a situation where you want to have 2 offensive threats on the field, and to just cancel out one of your opponent's options for dealing with the threats. So if you have like a Nagaice and a Hedgen on the field, then your opponent can't actually hit Hedgen with a water type move. And if they want to bring in an Earth to threaten the Hedgen, then your Nagaice has a water move to threaten that. So you can create combos like that. And that's kind of the main reason you'd want to use Water Custodian. There's a whole bunch of intricacies as to how this trait procs and when it procs. I would check out the wiki on Water Custodian if you want a more in-depth explanation on that. It would take me 10 minutes just to go through those alone. It's a silly little trait, but the difference I made is I swapped out Psy Surge for High Pressure Water here, because Psy Surge is just normal low prio when you have Water Custodian, so it doesn't help you. High Pressure Water allows you to have better synergy with something like Hazrat. Hazrat gets Lava Wave synergy off of you, and you can get High Pressure Water synergy off of it. It also gives you just a second water move if Fury's down. But once again, you could instead go something like Humiliating Slap if you'd like. If you really want prio as well, there is Energy Manipulation. It's kind of weak, but options there for you, for sure. And Tuckma Mask is definitely not a required to build. I would still run marbles even on the Water Custodian build. You can't have 2 of the same item on Temtem. So, yeah. As far as good partners, Chimerian synergizes really well with Nagase because one of Chimerian's biggest downsides is that its only real nature move is Frond Whip, which is low prio. And Decidora fixes that and makes it the opposite. Chimerian's already fast in general, so it gets a lot of value from having a prio option with that much damage. It also, Chimerian threatens out the electrics that Nagase is weak to, and Nagase threatens out the fires the Chim is weak to. So it's one of the better combos out there. You can also have high prio Burrow on Chimerian. Burrow's not a common move you run on Chim, but you can with this combo. And then, I just have Volcrane on here to show that you can run any low prio spammer with Nagase and get value, but typically you're going to want a Tem that has a faster base speed with low prio. So Volcrane has Stone Ball, high damage, low prio move. You also have something like the Rotten Goo users. Like, typically it would just be Platimus and maybe a faster Acronox. Electro Punch is an option as well, but you can just kind of cancel out that. You'd normally see those on Digi teams. I wonder if I think I just heard a scream. My roommate might be back, so I apologize if there's some background noise upcoming. Yeah, so Volcrane's an okay partner as well. There's not a whole lot of super valuable low prio moves, but something like Frond Whip and Stone Ball are definitely rank up there. As far as counters to Nagase, Platimus is like I said, your opponents can use Decidora against you as much as they use it, as you combo with it. So if your opponent has a Platimus with Rotten Goo without synergy, then they can hit you super effective. Same thing with Electro Punch users. If you're facing an opposing Digi team, they just have a Ragnit and they don't have the Digi on the field, then yeah, your Nagase is in danger. And as far as Amphitheater is just super fast. Since Decidora no longer flips the speed entirely, it no longer works like Pokemon Trick Room. It just flips priority. That means that really fast electrics still get a lot of value. So Amphitheater has a faster max speed than Nagase. Inky doesn't have a faster max speed, but it's typically run faster than Nagase. Stuff like Gialis can outspeed Nagase with Crystal Bite if it has enough speed. Stuff like that, all of them can be threatening to Nagase. And that's probably why Nagase is seen as kind of like below average right now. It's just got too many weaknesses that your opponents can really take advantage of. Okay. On to the next one. We have Nidrasil. Nidrasil has seen a lot of competitive play, or like top tier Tem CS play. It's also one of the Tems that has a wide enough variety of moves that it's like it wishes it had 8 move slots. It's also got 2 traits. Tri-Apothecary is better than Tri-Phytologist. Sorry, Tri-Phytologist lovers, but Apothecary is just better. So this first build is kind of like your typical support nid, something you'd see on a stall team or just a bulky aggro team. Tri-Apothecary is just either give 3 turns of regen to an ally or 3 turns of toxin to an opponent. For gear, Nidrasil has so many gears it can run. Just like you could have Mom's Lunch on it if you want to have an exhaust support. If you want to survive hits better, you can run Coat. Yeah, Coat. Even Double Screen or something. I've seen Nut Bar on Nidrasil because it doesn't have a whole lot of self-healing. Being able to get some can be valuable. Marbles because it just sits on the field forever. Sweatband so it can be a stamina support with cooperation. And truly spam Spores and even Toxic Ink forever. I like Diabolo just because it allows you, like, your allies are swapping around a lot typically with Nid because of Spores, but Nidrasil just sits on the field. So you can kind of heal up your entire team with Spores and Diabolo. So it's very valuable. The only problem with putting Diabolo on Nid is you're kind of stacking a lot of your healing options on one Tem. and if it gets banned out, it can be problematic. So sometimes you want Diabolo on a different Tem, but if it doesn't get banned out, because there's other bigger threats, Diabolo is definitely the way to go. Mom's Lunch is probably equally as valuable, though, so, you know. Moveset options. Spores is your way to use your trait. Try Apothecary. It's just super cheap. As long as you have 61 stamina, you're net even on stam every time you click the move. Toxic Ink is just so you have a toxic attack option, and you also apply toxic ticks offensively. You can definitely run Nox Bomb in this slot, but I've heard from players running slower teams that they prefer Toxic Ink. So it's just basically your offensive option. Bark Shield is so that you can buff. You get a good Bark Shield off, and all of a sudden your opponent really can't do a whole lot. So it just costs a lot of stamina. So be careful of getting exhausted, and when you want to click that move. And Cooperation is Nidrasil's only way to potentially heal itself, and it also allows it to kind of function as a stamina support. So pretty standard moveset. There's a whole bunch of other moves it can use. Do not fall into the trap of using Hypnosis on the stall set. It's really not good if you don't have Speed Invest. You would only want to use Hypnosis if you have a faster Triphytologist set. Allergic Spread is an option, but it's you don't really want to give up any of these 4 moves for it. You could give up Cooperation if you don't think you need the healing, and then you can apply Poison to both opponents. It's like a 75% true damage in 1 attack. It's pretty nuts. Hallucination's bad. Narco's it's an option of more damage-oriented Nidrasil, for sure. If you can run Try Apothecary on a just kind of a bruiser Nid, and I suppose that's when you'd run Allergic Spread. Your moveset would be Spores, Nox Bomb, Narco Hit, and Allergic Spread with like Pillow or Energy Drink. That's relatively common. So that's kind of the situation you'd maybe run Allergic Spread. As far as the TVs go, it's just you want it bulky. It's max HP, enough stamina to hit 61, so you're net neutral on Spores, and then split defenses. You could have like these extra 100 TVs in special defense if you want, and kind of figure out if the meta is more physical or special. Currently, it's really mixed, so just evening out defenses I think is a-okay. As far as the Triphytologist set for Nidrasil, for the gear I have Pillow on this one because I am recommending to run Narco Hit, but you could just as easily run Energy Drink to keep going with your attacks. Just depends on if you value healing or energy or like tempo more, I suppose. I suppose with Triphytologist you'd probably want the tempo, so Energy Drink. Another option that's kind of fun is you can run Handcuffs because you're applying Exhaust every single turn with your trait, so you can trap your opponents as well. I don't see Handcuffs, but it's here, I promise. There it is. So if trapping, if you want it to be like a trap bot, Nidrasil can do that. As far as move options, Sharp Leaf it's an awful move, but it's your really only nature stab. You could even theoretically run Slingshot. Slingshot and Sharp Leaf does more damage than you probably think, but it's still bad. So can't super recommend it, but the option's there. Nox Bomb's your main high damage toxic option. Narco Hits for coverage, because otherwise you get walled by toxic types, so it's nice. It's nice for that. Also allows you to hit neutrals and melees super effective. And Toxic Ink is so you can apply 2 statuses if you're not running Handcuffs. So if you're facing a Gallios and you want to push off its doom, you click Toxic Ink on it, so you apply the exhaust and the poison ticks. You can run Wake Up over Toxic Ink, especially if you're running Handcuffs, because that allows you to do a really fast trap and heal or a trap and exhaust on your opponent, which may be valuable as just kind of like a last trying to get some damage off in the very end of Nidrasil's life. I've even seen Held Anger before on these offensive bruiser Nid sets. Uh, it just you almost never click it. Like Narco typically gets more value than it, so I can't recommend that one. And then this build is just max attack, fill HP. You could play around with it some for sure, but that's kind of what I think is relatively good. It's still kind of this is more of the niche for fun stat, but the option is there. Good Nidrasil partners. Speckled Magmut is one of the best receivers of spores because it gets the regen ticks and you're healing Magmut with the Spec Gulp, and it resists the spores, so it's a really good time to set up on stall teams. And also, Magmut has a way to buff its special defense with Charcoal Wall, and Nidrasil can buff its defense with Spark Shield. So it's a super, super annoying combo. Not that it's always consistent, but it's just one of the good partners out there. Nidrasil really just loves it. The Tri-Apothecary Nid really loves any bulkier team. You can pair it with a whole bunch of other toxics so you can heal them up. You can even pair it with something like a Cowrin, Procket's Reactive Vial even, and then heal it. So many options. Nidrasil's one of, if not the best healer in the game. And then I have 2-wire on here because of the Triphytologist. Because if you have Wake Up on your Nidrasil, you can, or Wake Up Handcuffs, you could Wake Up Handcuffs before the 2-wire attacks and push off Neutralized and get super effective damage. And then at the same time, 2-wire can do a Synergy Faraday Cage to push off the Neutralized, so Nidrasil can do super effective damage. So you can go kind of either way there. It's just like the old Adoro combo with E-Minute handcuffs and such. So you can play around with that if you'd like. It's one of Triphytologist's better combos, I believe. As far as counters, I mean, Tortonite, any Toxic in general, because Nid doesn't have a way to hit Toxics outside of Narco Hit and the extremely niche that you're never going to see, so don't run it, Held Anger. But Tortonite also resists Narco Hit. And it also has a similar game plan, and I was kind of like stalling out a game. So you can actually use Tortonite's Garden on a Nidrasil and completely ruin it. And then Hazrat's another counter. Immune to toxic ticks, resists toxic, and it can heat up in Nidrasil's face to destroy it in a matter of turns. So those two better counters to Nid. We're getting there, almost done. Now we're on to Capyre, another tome that a lot of people love, and the Capyre just hasn't seen a lot of value in recent seasons. Actually, I'm not sure if I've ever seen Capyre really be top tier. So I mean, I only started in Arbory, so it may have been sometime before that. Anyways, Capyre doesn't have a whole lot of flexibility in its kit. It has what look like a lot of really good support and stall moves, but it doesn't have the the stat spread to be able to utilize them. On a recent stream, I actually tried running stall Capyre. I think it was the Patch Notes Peak We're All Doomed stream. So if anyone's interested in that, you could check that out. I do not build a stall Capyre here, though, because I cannot recommend it. It was not viable. It was just more for fun. But this is the Capyre build I typically go with when I'm playing Capyre. I had 232 speed, 73 stam allows me to double Quetzal into Meteorite, max attack, and then fill HP. Capyre gets a lot of damage boosts with Last Rush. You're going to use Capyre either as a late game cleaner or as a revenge killer. Fire Chip just increases the damage Capyre deals as a mono fire. Heat Up is so you can, if you're on a positive board state, you can get set up and sweep late game, or you can even just call a bluff swap in a 50-50 and get set up and still sweep. Heat Up is the main differentiating factor between Capyre and Raikin, because Capyre can set up without having to kill something. Base Jump is also another thing that really helps Capyre stand out. It's like Raikin doesn't have a good neutral option to hit stuff with, but Capyre can hit all the waters, fires, and earths with base jump. Though you probably aren't going to click it that often, because on a resisted Quetzal still does relatively similar damage to a base jump. There's even when I was playing around with the Stall Capyre, I actually tried running Extinction over base jump. That didn't really help much. But I mean, technically, you could run Embers instead of base jump just to offer a little bit of burn support against slower teams with Capyre. Or even something like block or charcoal wall just to buy yourself a little bit of time. But I think base jump's it's just gonna be your general best go-to option. And then I have a secondary Capyre build here. The trait gear moves basically gonna all be the same. But if in case you want a fast Capyre build, I'd say you want something along these lines. You still want to hit the same stand break point. The speed, so whenever I'm trying to speed creep the people who are speed creeping the Saipat Hedgen breakpoints, which I've referred to like 10 times in this video, I usually go up to 309 because the main Tem that would speed creep those is going to be Oshiara. And so being able to outspeed that as a fire type is very valuable. But it's not flawless either. Oshiara can go up to like 330 speed. So just be aware you can definitely be outsped. You don't have to be afraid of Mudrids a whole lot. Mudrids just not common, and most Mudrids won't bother reaching more than the speed break point either, as we covered in the beginning of the video. And then the attack is just kind of fill with after these stats. It's just as much damage as you can get. Capyre can live some damage or hits naturally. So stuff like a water cannon. It can even live some stone balls. So, I don't think it can live a soil steam, but maybe a cold geyser. It's just kind of like an alternative build. I haven't experimented much with fast Capyre. I always find this more mid-tier bulky Capyre to be very comfortable and to feel relatively good. The biggest problem with Capyre is just that it's a mono fire. It'll get walled by 3 types in the game. So it's not always going to be useful. It's not going to be a Tem you want to pick all the time. And if it is strong against somebody's team, it's usually a priority ban just because of the amount of damage it can output with Heat Up and Last Rush. As far as good partners for Capyre, we have Shellant. Shellant has Welcomer, which is the only way you can really protect Capyre turn 1 to allow it to get a free Heat Up off. I was trying to think of other good partners for Capyre, but I mean, most of Capyre's partners are just going to be neutrals in general. And of all the neutrals that you could pair Capyre with, Mouflank is going to be your top option. Just because they are similar speed tiers that have the same game plan. And as I already kind of covered in the Mouflank section of the video. Counters to Capyre are anything ranging from fires, earths, and water types. Volcran and Gario just both 4x resist fire, so that's why I put them here. It's going to be tough to break through either of these. These are the Tems that you want to bring base jump for, but it's not often that you run into them. So I could put Tolkien here as well, because Tolkien's it's a common meta threat, same as like Hedgen, and they resist fire moves and can hit back with neutral hits and take out your Capyre faster than it can do anything. On to the last one of the video, we have Zenith. So Zenith is relatively flexible. It can kind of function as a special attack sweeper, a defensive stall tank, and even as like a physical attacker, physical bruiser sort. A special attack bruiser build, nuker build. This is kind of what you're going to run almost every time. Channeler trait with fake beard. Just because Zenith has horrific stamina and really high stamina cost moves in Crystal Spikes and Crystal Deluge. As far as moveset, you're always going to want Crystal Spikes and Deluge for sure. These are your mainstays on special Zenith. Deluge is just insane value as a move, and Zenith gets stab on it, gets channeler boost. So if you can click Deluge with synergy, you probably want to, but be aware of speed tiers at least. Madness buff is also really common because it allows you, if you have a positive board state, to threaten your opponent with a Madness buff just on a swap and just basically destroy anything you outspeed. You could have Court Shield if you wanted to fill a slightly more support role. And then Knockback if you want to hit uh, fires and earth. Just crystal resist neutrally. It's a really nice option. Just know that you're not going to want to click it all the time because it's normal prio, non-stab. You take recoil, and I mean that's kind of it. It's not that if your opponent does not resist crystal, you don't want to click knockback unless you're predicting a swap into something that does. But, I mean, you could if you were Court Shield is a really valuable move, and it's not on a whole lot of Tems. So I said you could swap it out for Madness Buff. You could also swap it out for Knockback instead. Just depends on which one's more valuable to your team. The moveset, I always hit 200 speed on any Crystal Spiker because otherwise you can get outsped by Golzi using Oshidashi, and that is bad. So with this you can outspeed max speed Golzi Oshidashi. The stamina breakpoint is with Fake Beard. Or actually, the breakpoint is if you get exhausted with like Mob's Lunch or something, then you can still use 2 Crystal Spikes without overexerting. You could invest up to 61 stamina for sure. It's just you're trying to save as many stam TVs as you can because Zenith isn't going to get a whole lot of value out of them. It's just going to get value out of what it can with Fake Beard. Then max special attack and fill HP, which happens to be exactly 400. Kind of funny. Now we have this kind of a physical Zenith set with Wrecked Farewell. I haven't run physical Zenith a whole lot myself. I experimented with it somewhat when I was trying out an H-Slap team with Synergy. It was kind of one of the lower performers, though. It's just Tuvine and Chimerian do its job better. However, it's already been leaked. Well, not leaked. It's been announced that Zenith will be receiving a new signature move called Crystal Tail. We don't know much about it, but it looks like it's going to be just kind of a turn 1 physical crystal option. So that's why I'm leaving this spot open here. I'm leaving it for that move. So maybe physical Zenith will really pick up in use once that move comes out. We'll just have to see. Once again, Zenith wants a stamina item. Sweatband is an option usually more for the physical build because its moves are cheaper here. Crystal Bite, Sharp Stabs, Quartz Shield, and whatever the stamina cost of the new move is going to be. The only reason you'd run Wrecked Farewell over Channeler is because Channeler does literally nothing on a physical build because it only boosts special techniques. It's not that Wrecked Farewell does something special for a physical team. And this one, I still reach the same speed breakpoint. You do have priority with Sharp Stabs, so it's still nice. Quartz Shield, you don't have to run it, but if you can buff up your opponent's defenses and then lower your opponent's offenses with Wrecked Farewell, it can really flip an endgame around, so I think it's a really valuable move. But you could run Mineral Hail as just another offensive option if you'd like, or Sharpening for an offensive scaling option. And then, yeah, the last slot I already said is going to be the new move. For this one I have max HP, because I think dealing damage is less of a priority. And at the same time, you don't necessarily need HP, because it's okay if you die. You can punish your opponent for it. So you could go max attack and stack HP, or max HP and stack attack. Either one is a-okay. Also, I forgot to mention it with this build. Another option instead of knockback I have seen is Diamond Fort. Zenith usually survives a while, and if it gets ignored, you can just click it, and all of a sudden your Zenith becomes near unkillable. Problem is, it may be able to stay on the field for a while, but its stamina-wise is not able to keep up. So just be aware of that. Yeah, the 61 stam is just for stam recovery breakpoint. Sweatband Seal regain 10 stam every turn. And then last but not least for the Zenith build is my personal favorite. I feel like I was the one that came up with this ages ago, but there may have been somebody before me. So I apologize if there was, but I'm taking credit for this. Back with old Wrecked Farewell. Wrecked Farewell used to. I mean, I don't think anyone actually had one. Yeah, okay. This is a meme set. I should have said this is a meme set. All right. Uh, so, old Wrecked Farewell used to knock out 20% of both opponents' HP if you were able to knock yourself out. It was very difficult to knock yourself out. So what I did is I had minimum HP, minimum stamina, and with triple crystal spikes, with any amount of chip whatsoever, Zenith would be able to die on the third spikes and get its trade off. I usually paired it with Tental. So if I received a little bit more chip, I could Crystal Spikes into a Synergy Crystal Deluge, into another Crystal Spikes, into proccing my trait, into proccing Avenger on Tental. So I should have, yeah. There, I'll talk. So it was a really fun combo. Is it viable? Not particularly. You can also lower your own HP with Madness buff, and now you can add knockback into the combo, so even if Zenith gets completely ignored, it's able to Crystal Spikes, knockback Crystal Spikes, and still die. The Adrenaline Shot is to make sure that you can attack, because you're OXing after the second attack with this set. You literally have minimum SVs in HP and stamina. So you're OXing real quick. The Adrenaline Shot is to make sure that you can get one more attack off to empty out your HP bar and to proc your trait. And for those who didn't know, if you... Yeah, so even on Temtem, when this Temtem faints, the Temtem defeated lose 10% of their temp... So normally the way the trait works is if something knocks out Zenith, that Tem gets -2 special attack and loses 10% of their stam. However, if Zenith knocks itself out through OXing or recoil from knockback or madness buff, then both opponents receive the attack debuff and stam debuff. So if you can pull it off, it is valuable, but you're still sacrificing your Zenith to do it, and you're attacking to do so with usually a really powerful crystal spikes, so it's questionable. It's more of a meme set. If you're running Zenith, you're going to be running a set like this for the most part. And then there's like the actual build on this stupid set. It's just max speed, max special attack, because you don't want to invest in your defenses to survive longer because you want to die. As far as good partners for Zenith, it's just Mentals for Deluge Synergy. Tental, because of its trait Avenger, combos with Wrecked Farewell. It's still a meme, but it's a fun little combo. And then Sanby, it's just a Tem that has a similar speed tier and game plan to Zenith, being bulkier, being able to take a couple hits and still provide the Deluge Synergy. But really, it's just Mentals in general combo well with Zenith. As far as Zenith counters, I have Gallios on here because Gallios is not weak to Crystal Spikes, and it's also immune to the sleep of Crystal Deluge. So it can be very problematic that way. It can also hit back with a super effective Dust Vortex. And then I also have Anatan on here because Anatan is the bane of existence of Crystal Delugers, because Self-Care, its trait, applies regen for 1 turn after being attacked. And since Crystal Deluge, the sleep is applied first, it actually pushes off the sleep. So a Synergy Crystal Deluge will not put an Anatan to sleep. So be aware of that, anyone. Not that Anatan's common right now, but it also is a fire type to resist it, and it can smack Zenith back with a strong fire move. Whew. That took longer than last time. I'm sorry, but it's an in-depth guide. I hope y'all enjoyed. That's all I have today. This section's probably called ending remarks. I want to mention. I forgot when I was talking to Skunch. I mentioned it in the roller section. If you are running a support Skunch build, there have been a few niche cases where I've seen people drop like Ninja or even Perfect Jab on a bulkier team to run Stonewall and even 5 PPH. Is it common? No. Is it consistent? No. Is it an option? Yeah, it's an option. And it's not even the worst option. Like, Skunch even has like Cage and stuff. It has more moves than you probably think to catch people off guard. But the main moves are the ones I touched on. But yeah, that's the only thing I thought of while going through things that I wanted to mention at the end. Otherwise, kind of refer to the beginning. What I'll just mention it again. All of these builds, you can use the builds as is. I've designed them so that you can just plug them into your own team and run with them. But it's also they're better off as guidelines, something just a starting point to try stuff out. Like if you play this Zenith and you think that, oh, I'm not seeing enough goalsies, and so this speed invest isn't getting a lot of value. I'd rather be bulkier. You can absolutely take this down to whatever value you want, and then put more in your HP or something along that line. It's just these are just good starting points that I can recommend, and mostly they're like builds that I've played with and have tested and had some amount of success with. There's not like a perfect build for every time I can give you. This is just like, Temtem is a game where a lot of your TV builds and even sometimes movesets are going to be dependent on what kind of team you're running. And so without knowing everyone's exact team, I can't just offer specific builds. I can just offer general stuff like this that can be as splashable as possible based on every tem. And if you're looking for more of an idea of team specific builds, I would have to refer you to some of the team codes that I've shared in the past and kind of to do your own research. I explain I it's been a little while since I've done a lot of team building on stream, but I in some of my older videos I used to start the videos with a team building section, and I'd kind of explain my decisions of like, why am I investing so much speed in this tem and how much in HP in this tem? Why am I having this tem that's normally offensive be a support? It's because of this type weakness or that or the other. So, and those are kind of things you need to take into consideration normally. But I think all of these are good general starting points. I hope you all learned something and enjoyed the video. Um, and that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.